Hello and welcome to NPR. This is Saturday Morning Chat with Aaron and Casey Lee. It is 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and welcome to a interesting chat about entertainment, technology, and cars. Today with me, I have my guest host, as always,
Aaron Sedenkar.
And yes, my name is Casey Lee. I hope you're enjoying your cup of morning joe and enjoying the nice sunrise and sunset of the day. Okay, that's enough of that. All right. Welcome back to the ETC podcast, episode 67. This is our special holiday one-off, but maybe it's going to be a kickoff to season 8. I think we just finished season 7. Do you remember? I'm assuming you don't remember.
I mean, the fact you know the episode number, you're a lot more prepared than I am.
Yeah, I mean, I did open up a tab and go to our website to see what episode we had just finished a couple of minutes ago while you're setting up your recording. So that's about as prepared as we are. So yes, this is a special holiday episode. Last time we recorded was, when did we end? Was it back in June? April? Oh wait, I have it here. April 22nd.
Yeah. So just, I mean, at least we didn't go since the last holidays, right? Like
Yes, exactly. We haven't missed the whole year. And as in traditional ETC style, we do not know what this means. We don't know if this is a kickoff to a new season or if this is just a one-off special edition. You never know. I mean, we had one season, I think it was like season 5 or something, that was only 3 episodes spread over like a year.
Yeah.
So it could be a season.
But we we're doing some, I think, an episode in the recording in the morning. As far as
that's
I
the
can
thing.
remember,
That's yeah, exactly. You read my mind. Yeah, this is the first time we've recorded at 11 in the morning. So we're usually recording in the evenings. When we started the podcast way back, I think we were going as late as like 8, 9, 10, 11 p.m. something.
Yep.
But now we're early risers on the Saturday morning, and we hope you guys are enjoying your cup of coffee on this day. So me and Aaron went to a Christmas market yesterday, and we were talking. We're like, oh yeah, we should just do it. We'll do it tomorrow. And Aaron pointed out that, again, traditional ETC style, we have absolutely nothing prepared. We're just jumping into it and hoping we can fill about an hour of your time. So let me start by saying that there is a lot of movie news that... Well, okay, so here's the thing. I opened up my notes that I had been taking like way back in April. So I have a bunch of outdated news here. And then I really quickly jotted down a bunch of movie news. But before we get to the movie news, I want to talk about some of the stuff that we never got to, actually. Like, that is probably not relevant at all nowadays. So
it's like a time capsule. Like we'll...
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Open up what you were going to talk about in earlier this year.
Yeah, exactly. A little retrospective. So one of our avid listeners, or at least I'd like to think of him as an avid listener, is our friend Brody.
Yeah.
And there are certain news stories that we cover that I think are either going to blow Brody's mind open, or he's going to be like, yeah, I know that. Why are you guys reporting on this? This is obvious news, right? Do you happen to remember the last story we did that I thought would blow open his mind?
Like specifically Brody?
Yes.
I can't remember.
Yeah, so it was the Godfather news. There was like a definitive cut or like a director's cut of Godfather 3 that was supposed to salvage the wreckage of Godfather 3.
Right.
So that was one of these stories where I'm like Brody's been painstakingly listening to 60 some episodes, and he finally gets to his news story. So we got another one. That I think is going to blow his mind open. Okay, so Aaron, when you think about Brody, what musical bands do you think of when you think of Brody?
I mean, definitely Nirvana.
Okay, let's start there. That's the news story. It's about Nirvana. Okay, so Nirvana, obviously 90s grunge influential band. I was never a massive fan, but I understand their influence. I understand their importance to the musical industry. And obviously with Kurt Cobain's suicide, was it a suicide?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So obviously that was a really big deal. And, obviously the music lives on and it's a really big deal. Most recently, I can remember Captain Marvel used it. And Captain Marvel was a big homage to the 90s. And they used Nirvana. And also a lot of movie trailers these days are using like really kind of like, emotional, slow versions of their songs.
Covers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't deny their influence. I don't deny their impact on the music world. So what's interesting is when you think about Nirvana, can you think of some of the album covers that Nirvana had released? Like, can you picture certain album covers that they had?
I mean, I think two come to mind. One is like the baby swimming in like the swimming pool or whatever, right? With the I think there was like a dollar bill or something.
Yes.
As well. Yeah. And then Nirvana was also the one with like it's like a smiley face. I think some sort of like smiley face, eyes crossed out.
That is possible, but I don't remember. But I definitely remember the baby thing. And that is the one I'm talking about. So what's interesting about the baby thing, right? I actually remember Weird Al's version of that cover first.
Oh, Weird Al, yeah.
And so Weird Al, he was swimming naked in the pool. And, what was interesting about it is the way they positioned him so you couldn't see certain body parts of Weird Al, right? Because that would be pretty explicit. But then I remember as a kid then going back to the Nirvana album and being like, oh, like the baby, they actually do show all full body parts of the baby on the cover, right? So the interesting piece of news is that baby grew up and is deciding to sue Nirvana's estate.
Oh, okay.
Because of that picture. Because I don't know if it's because of, and obviously I don't want to make light of what this person went through.
Yeah.
I just don't know what it is. I can't remember if it's because they showed the body parts or if it's because just because he was the Nirvana baby that, like it's one of these things where like when you become this like random hit sensation as a baby, a lot of people just, kind of like they keep like, I'm sure he gets harassed and I'm sure he gets a lot of bad attention. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but apparently that baby is suing Nirvana.
That's crazy.
Yes.
That's crazy.
I love how like we got to that because exactly. What's the band?
But this is not like you're saying this happened like back in April or whatever.
This happened. I'd be curious to see what happened with that actually. Nirvana baby's lawsuit. Okay, here we go.
Did he win the lawsuit?
Oh, okay. What's interesting is Dave Grohl actually responded to the lawsuit.
Who's around? Dave Grohl and like who's around from?
I don't know. I only know Dave Grohl. I don't know who the other members are.
Yeah.
But Dave Grohl has spoken out after he and his Nirvana band for alleged sexual exploitation of a minor on the cover of their Nevermind album.
I mean, it's a good point. You probably couldn't. I mean, you couldn't do that today, probably, right? Like you can.
I'm sure.
Release an album cover like that.
Yeah. I don't know what. 30-year-old claims that he has suffered a number of lifelong damages. As a result, extreme and permanent emotional distress, interference with normal development, stuff like that. I'm curious what Dave Grohl's response was. This is one of those. Oh, it's a BuzzFeed article, so it's a lot of images and very little text. But that's perfect for our live update on the ETC podcast. Okay, now a new interview with Dave Grohl marks the first time that any of the surviving band members have publicly addressed the lawsuit. Dave Grohl standing there with his nice custom Gibson over the weekend. Nirvana band member hinted that there are plans to alter. Okay, interesting. Speaking to the Sunday Times over the weekend, the Nirvana band member hinted that there are plans to alter the album cover ahead of its forthcoming 30th anniversary. All right, so that's good. They're addressing it.
Yep.
So that was back in October. I have many ideas of how we should alter that cover, but we'll see what happens. Grohl said, we'll let you know. I'm sure we'll come up with something good. So that's good. I mean, I feel like Dave Grohl is a very respectable person and would handle
Yeah,
these things, take it seriously. So
I mean, he's definitely kind of on a Dave Grohl tangent here, I guess. But he's obviously like the most popular remaining band member, right? Because I mean, you and I aren't huge Nirvana fans, maybe, but I can't recall the names of the bassist and the drummer, I guess. Or is it not the drummer, the bassist and the who would be the other member, guitar player?
Is it only 3 of them? It might have been a 3-piece band.
3?
I don't know.
I thought it was 4.
It might have been.
See, that's how much we don't know about Nirvana.
Yes.
But Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters, obviously, right?
Yes.
Frontman of the Foo Fighters. I watch YouTube and it serves up videos as it does, right? And I get a lot of these, for whatever reason, I must have watched one of these videos, but the Foo Fighters, I guess, are really known for bringing on kind of fans to play a song.
Okay, hold on. I got to pause you there for a second.
Yeah.
I think you're about to bring up my next news story. So continue.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So this is not just one kind of instance because I watched a few of these, and they're always really fun to watch. And it seems like Dave Grohl and the band, like they're just really obviously they love to play music, and play live, but it seems like they're really kind of engaged with their fans and really willing to kind of just have fun with them. So the first video that I saw was it was somewhere in Europe, and I don't know if it was planned ahead of time or whatnot, but they got this drummer to come up and do a song, and he just like killed it. Like it was ridiculous. Like
was it a guy?
It was a guy. Yeah.
Okay, so this is not the one I'm talking about.
So that was one of them, and then I think this is probably what you're talking about because this was I did see this outside of YouTube as well, but at the time at least I think this 11-year-old girl, and I don't know if she's probably older now. So I guess it started off as sort of like she's a drummer, and I think on her YouTube channel, I think she maybe covered a Foo Fighters song and then challenged Dave Grohl, who was a drummer of Nirvana, right?
Exactly.
To like a
so
drum
her name is Nandi right. Bushell.
Yeah. And anyways, the first video I saw was actually, I guess, a show where Dave Grohl and the band invited her to actually come up on stage, and I think she played Everlong, and it was crazy because again, this girl's like 11, right? I think.
Yeah, she's really young, and it's crazy because it was a pretty long saga, right? Like you said, it started with the challenge, and then there was all this back and forth, and it was very recently. Like it wasn't too long ago that I mean, well now it is because obviously I had this on my news thing since April. But at that time, it was pretty new that she actually was invited up on stage to actually play with them. Yeah. And I remember the title of the YouTube video was something like "Dreams Come True" or something like that. Because I think it was a relatively long saga of them going back and forth. And I think something like they gifted her stuff. And by the way, all these celebrities since have gifted her a lot of stuff.
Awesome.
I think Lenny Kravitz gifted her a guitar and all this stuff like that.
So she's played with. Has she played with other artists, I guess?
I don't know. But I do know people have picked up on her talent and decided to give her like instruments to support her and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see her and Dave Grohl like at one point, because I guess the challenges they didn't actually interact. It was just like a YouTube video and then a response back and forth. Yeah. But then when they're actually starting to talk to each other, it's super cool. And then the fact, that she actually went up on stage with them to a big concert was crazy, right?
Yeah, and again, it's like, it's not just the fact that she's young. Again, this is probably one of the best drum performances I've seen, regardless of age or whatever, right? So, and that's not the first. I think it got recommended. That stuff came up because Foo Fighters have done this, but it was just kind of something that you kind of reminded me. Speaking of Dave Grohl, but we'll post a video for that because it's pretty cool, and I think there's something about I've seen a few videos like this where it's like a younger person that whether they just have like a YouTube channel or whatever, and for some reason like drumming is kind of crazy because it's like you played a bit of drums, right? Like it's actually like it's not just skill, it's also pretty physically demanding, right? So it blows my mind sometimes to see these like young kids just like kill a song on a drum kit. Because it's very, very impressive from both the skill and also just the fact that, if an adult tried to take up drums, right, they would struggle. Most people would struggle, right? So it's pretty impressive.
it's funny because obviously there's a lot of kind of unnecessary preconceived notions about what people can do, right?
Yeah.
And on the other end of the spectrum, I came across these YouTube videos of this older woman that's probably, I want to put her probably over 60 years old, maybe 70.
Yeah.
And she's like, these videos of her playing like Enter Sandman
awesome.
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's just
awesome.
super good.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, obviously it's stupid because it's just our preconceived notions of people.
Yeah.
But it's still something that you're like, wow, I don't see that often, right? So it is crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, so definitely like, yeah, this Nandi Bushell thing it's super cool. Yeah, so I just looked her up. She was born in 2010. April 28th. Yeah, so yeah, 11 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, just talking about drumming though, I mean, like besides the physical demand, like if it's one thing I know when you're playing in a band and you're playing with like a drummer who can't either keep beat or speeds up, like you notice it. Like you really, it kind of messes up if you're playing because drums are so like, I mean, they're so pounding in terms of like kind of bleeding through all the other instruments that if they're speeding up, it's always you trying to keep up with them. It's very opposite that amateur drummers switch their speed to keep up with the rest of the band. It's always the other way around, right? And so the fact that she played with the Foo Fighters, and I'm assuming kept a good beat because she's
you should, if you haven't watched the video, there's one or two videos. I think the one I saw was a fan video, but I think there's also a video from her own channel.
I think it's her dad actually. So her dad,
So I've watched one or two, but you're right. Like it's one thing to in a kind of controlled environment, making your own video to kind of nail timing and stuff. But you're right, like going on stage, and this was a big show or something. It was like in a stadium in Los Angeles, right?
And
I think even the best of drummers would like, you and I have seen a lot of live shows where the timing just isn't, the same as what you would hear on an album or something, right? Because it's difficult, right? Like I think humans are not, you don't have like a metronome or like a, computer to adjust the timing like you might in a studio.
Yeah.
So anyways, it was really impressive the fact that, she like just kind of nailed it and in front on a huge stage like that.
Just being like in front of that many people. Well, and I wonder like, I mean, not to downplay her amazingness.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if it's a little bit of the like when you talk to kids and stuff like that, like they're just fearless, right? Yeah. And it's like as you grow older, it's like you become your own worst enemy because you build up like all the nervousness and everything like that, right? And I wonder if it's because she is younger, that she's just like, I'm awesome. I can do this, whatever. Who cares? I'm going to kill it. Right. I mean, again, not to downplay how amazing it was, but so check it out. Nandi Bushell. I don't know how to pronounce that. But like, if you're watching this, you should kind of watch the whole saga, like her challenging Dave Grohl, challenging her back. Because the interesting thing is Dave Grohl challenged her to a new song. It's like, hey, this is a different song that I want to challenge you to. And then all this build up to them actually meeting over the like virtual like laptop or whatever. Yeah. And then eventually her going on stage. It's a pretty cool story. So check it out. Dave Grohl and Nandi Bushell. Staying on music news. Pretend we're in April. Do you know who is back?
Who, like what?
That's
artists or something?
That's a really vague question, and if you got it, it'd be like, oh my god.
I mean, we're back.
We are back.
Yes. So an artist or a band, I guess.
Yes.
Like that. I'm assuming you're asking because they kind of were around like a while back, and I guess they're like reuniting or something. One of these things.
So it's a slightly trick question because they were never really around in this form, and now but they were making music, and then they stopped, and now they're back in a different form. And I use the word they loosely.
No, I have nothing.
Him or her. Tim Baker.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So one of me and Aaron's favorite bands, Hey Rosetta. I have to give credit where credit due. Definitely Aaron was the one who introduced me to Hey Rosetta. Lead singer, and I think probably a lot of the writing was done by him too, was Tim Baker.
I think so, yeah.
So Hey Rosetta split up a while back. We were super fans, and then we weren't because we didn't even realize they split up. yeah, Tim Baker. Well, who knows now? It's December and this is April news. He could be, but I think he did release a solo album. And I've been meaning to check
I know
it out.
that. So I don't know if this news is about that because I did remember he did at least one solo album, and I think I did listen to a few songs.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
was it good?
Yeah, from what I heard, it was. I mean, like definitely a little bit different than because I think Hey Rosetta with having because they had not just a standard band instruments, but I think they also had
totally
cello, right? So a little bit less of that, but you can tell the
yeah.
songwriting was kind of still a lot of aspects of Hey Rosetta. So. But this is a good reminder. I kind of want to listen, like revisit and listen to it again.
Me too. And I mean, so much. I mean, I shouldn't say so much of Hey Rosetta's sound. I mean, so you're right. So much of Hey Rosetta's sound was the full band, no question. But I feel like one of the parts that I love so much about Hey Rosetta was Tim Baker's voice.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
it was kind of one of these like kind of raspy, and you wouldn't necessarily say it's like. Oh, that's such like a beautiful voice, but it is. It's a crazy voice. Yeah. Crazy range. I mean, he's definitely one of these. They're definitely one of these bands that when I sing, I'm like spending like 75% of my time singing in falsetto because he has such a high range. So he's back. Well, so he is still around because he has some concert dates. It's been a long time since we've done. We used to do concert dates on the ETC podcast.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because we also
used to play music.
Exactly. So, if you're interested in Tim Baker, well, first of all, if you've never heard of him, you should definitely check out his music. But second of all, he is playing at the Holy Heart Theater in St. John's, Newfoundland, December 11th, 2021.
Which is,
but then
he's from Newfoundland, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah. So there was remember that there was that CBC thing where they got a band from each province to write and record a song about their province, and Hey Rosetta was selected for Newfoundland that year. But then he's coming our way, actually.
Oh, okay.
Not quite as far as Ottawa, but
has this passed already, or is it?
No. This is still relevant. February 23rd, 2022.
Okay.
He's going to be in London, Ontario.
Yeah.
At the London Music Hall, and February 25th, 2022, he's going to be in Toronto, actually.
Nice.
Danforth Music Hall with Eric
Ottawa,
Slick
though.
and Nico Paulo. Yeah. Very cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So, Hey Rosetta, Tim Baker, it's all back. A lot of good music news. Did you hear Drake has pulled away from the Grammys, I think it was?
Oh, I think I did. Sorry,
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure if he was because I'm assuming he could be involved in various different ways, from performing to being, I don't know, like part of the hosting thing. So I don't actually know what he pulled away, but I know there's
he put all his like he was nominated and he said I'm pulling.
Oh, he was nominated for.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So I guess you could do that, right? I guess you don't have to if you get nominated for an award, you don't have to participate, right?
I don't know what the rules around that are. Like, I don't know if it's like an unofficial thing where he just doesn't show up and he doesn't accept it, or if he withdraws, they literally take him off the list in terms of people who could win. I'm not sure.
Huh. Yeah.
This is surrounding. I think it is surround like because he had done this before. I think he did this last year, and I think he was upset about the nominations, and I don't know if it was surrounding hip hop specifically or if black music in general. He felt like a lot of people got snubbed. Specifically, The Weeknd. I think he was really angry about like how could it not get nominated at all. And then this year, I don't know if that was the same thing last year, but this year he was like, how could like The Weeknd's album and song get snubbed? Like it's ridiculous. Like he thinks it like was one of the best albums or songs.
Okay.
And so as a result, he pulled out and he wrote some statement about like, how like why are we still supporting this if it's just pointless and it's just they're meaningless now, these kind of awards or whatever, and he's pulling it out. So yeah, it's interesting because like I don't know, like I mean I don't disagree with him. I mean, that being said, I haven't heard The Weeknd stuff that he's talking about. So and that being said, I'm not exactly. I don't know if I'm in an authoritative position to discuss this should be nominated and this shouldn't be. I feel like he is. I mean, he is obviously an incredibly successful music artist who is probably very well educated on what good music is. But the thing about music awards, and even, I mean, film awards to an extent, it's there's a massive subjective element there, right? It is like, you know, I feel like music maybe even more so than film, but not even. I mean, film as well. Like it's tough to say like what constitutes good music and what like you think about is it XX double X? What are they called? XX,
the band?
Or no? Yeah. Oh yeah. Was that the album? Or was that the band?
I think there's a band called that.
Yeah,
like
right.
the British, like kind of indie rock kind of band.
And do you remember their really famous song? Like, I think it's the opening to that album. It was just like it started off with just like a single
just the
guitar
instrumental,
note.
right?
Yeah, it's probably that.
Yeah, love
and
that.
it's super minimal. Probably not. I mean, again, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I'm assuming not a crazy amount of effort or production.
I don't know. Yeah.
But an amazing song.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so how do you judge artistry that way? Right. It's kind of like if they were going to give art awards, like visual art awards. I'm sure they do actually. I don't know why I'm saying they wouldn't. But it's a weird thing, right? Like I understand his anger, and I don't discount that. But on the bigger scale about like who should be nominated, who shouldn't be, like if it's a representational issue, then yeah, that's definitely an issue, right? But if it's like one thing being better than the other, one's a interesting discussion, right?
Yeah, like entertainment awards, like I think, and I think, you know, obviously there's been, like you said, even with a lot of the film awards, there's been a lot of controversy the last few years, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like entertainment awards are kind of generally flawed to begin with, and I don't know if can't really get around that because, you know, like you said, it's not only just you know, what constitutes a great movie is you know, I think they have some kind of technical analysis, but a lot of it is just sort of like, you know, subjective feeling, right?
Yeah.
Because it's different than you think of awards and, you know, like things like athletics and stuff, like, you know, that's very kind of like numbers based, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Team wins or it doesn't, or this player scored the most goals, right?
Yeah,
you don't have that with entertainment. And I think like even, I would say probably the Oscars, Academy Awards, that's probably the biggest entertainment award show, I'm assuming, like out there.
I'm assuming so, yeah.
Even that, I think, I don't know what the exact number is, but the committee, or I don't know what they call them, that actually select the awards is relatively small.
It's
right?
literally the Academy.
Like it's what, a couple hundred people or something. I don't know the number. Like it's not.
I think it's generally like all the people who are part of the Academy. Who's it's a lot of like the actors and directors and all editors and all those people. Right? I think.
So
for sure.
So I mean, so even that, like, you know, it's a lot different than, and especially again, at the end of the day, entertainment doesn't exist if like literally like I don't know what you want to call them, the people, the viewers, the fans, right? Like not like. Again, it doesn't matter unless these people like, you know, are watching it or listening to it. And it's one of those weird things. Like, it's not like, you know, it's not like we nominate or elect these people who make these award decisions, right? Like, so I think there's always going to be some bias, and it's very imperfect, right? Because, you know, who decides who this, you know, committee is or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, you have no control over what their views and kind of like subjective opinion on what is good is. So I think inherently all these things are very flawed, right?
But I wonder if that's like, I wonder then if that's the point. Like, I wonder if what Drake is pointing out is like, look, guys, these awards are stupid. Like, the fact that it is this subjective and flawed, like, why are we giving this so much, like...
I think the issue is if then the general public takes that too literally, right? To be oh, if this doesn't get nominated as whatever album of the year, it's not good, right? It was like, no, that didn't get nominated in the eyes of whatever you know, group of biased people, right? And I say bias not because it's a problem with just those people that do it. It's everyone has bias, right? It's right, and so like I think award shows, to me, it's funny. I think I don't really watch too much, but I've always viewed them as more entertainment in itself than anything, right?
Yeah, the show itself,
rather than like, you know, like a lot of people like to say like, you know, I think it's just marketing, but whenever a new movie comes out, like starring Academy Award winner, this and this, or whatever, right? I don't think that's a huge deal. Like I think the award event itself is entertainment, right? And that's why they have performances and that's why it in itself is a show, right? So
yeah, I mean, I always enjoy the show, and I will say like where the awards do matter, I think it's when it comes to, like, especially for me, when it comes to like either movies I haven't heard of or directors I haven't heard of or artists I haven't heard of, right? When it's like, oh, that one album of the year, maybe I should check it out or whatever, right?
that's fair.
Like,
yeah, these things give exposure, right? So I think that that maybe is kind of the issue. Obviously, not for folks like The Weeknd and like that everyone knows anyways, right? And but it's more of like maybe an unfair judgment. But I think, I can see where this is an issue with. I think a lot of people do get exposure to artists through these things. Yeah. And so maybe it is an issue. If there's bias there, that means that artists that are, legitimately good aren't getting this exposure because there's bias in how these things are
well, and that's the thing, right? That's the thing. Like if it is a representational issue, which I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the issues that Drake has, right? Then that's a big issue, right? Yeah. But if it's also a bigger commentary on just the flawed system of this whole award system anyways, it's like I mean that's a good thing too. That's the thing. Ultimately, I think what he's bringing light to, and I think he's not alone in this. It's just like how ridiculous some of these things can be, right? Me personally, I don't know, but that's the thing. Like, I'm not in the industry, so it probably doesn't affect me that much. Like for me, like you said, for me, it's like fun entertainment. Yeah. Like because some of the best performances come out of these shows, and it's kind of fun when an artist that you like actually wins. Yeah. Right. Things like that, or a movie that you really liked. Oh, I'm so happy that won or whatever. But I can imagine if you're someone in the industry that it's just like it can be very, I don't know, frustrating or whatever. Yeah, definitely. Right? So. Yeah. All right, we're gonna take a short break, but we'll be right back after this. And we are back on this episode 67 of the ETC podcast on the wonderful Saturday, December 11th, 2021. If you want to get in touch with us, be sure to email us at podcast.etc@gmail.com or leave a voice message on our official website, anchor.fm/the-etc-podcast. You can also tweet at us at the ETC podcast. Before we get to our next segment, I just want to bring us some really quick tidbits here. Speaking of award shows, the Video Game Awards were recently held, and the top spot winner was It Takes Two, which is an independent game that can only be played cooperatively, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, sounds like a really cool game. What's interesting is I saw a YouTube video that said, hey, if you really like It Takes Two, here's a bunch of other games. And there are definitely a lot of other games that I'm very interested in as a result of that. So, I mean, 2-player cooperative, I feel like it's a genre that hasn't been exploited enough. Yeah. And like I remember growing up, Contra being such a wicked game, like 2 people playing together. So it's kind of one of these things. But I'm assuming at this point, because I haven't played video games in so long, that it's probably an incredible 2-player cooperative game.
That's awesome.
Like we always talk about how cool Overcooked is, right? Like it's
the most fun I've had playing video games has always been some sort of multiplayer co-op, kind of mode. Yeah. Right. Way more fun than like solo playing and. I've had more fun than versus like, most games have competitive multiplayer. But and I feel like that kind of, there was a time where it seemed like that was more common, and it seems like newer games that kind of died out in favor of competitive play. But it's cool. I definitely will. Is that on all platforms? Do you know? Like,
unfortunately, it's not available on Switch. I was hoping it was, but no. I think it's generally the newer generation systems. So PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox, and so on. It Takes Two. But what's cool it's an indie game. So it's cool that an indie game won the top spot at the Video Game Awards. And then lastly, The Eternals, which apparently was a little bit of a flop in the MCU universe. I'm still super interested to see it. I think it still looks really good. It is streaming on Disney Plus January 12th. It seems like, theater to Disney Plus is only roughly 2 months. I think Shang-Chi was the same thing.
I mean, very quick, especially if you are willing to, pay basically, right? Like it's like very quick. And then even if you aren't, I think the delay time seemingly isn't very long from when it goes from...
that's exactly it. Yeah. Like I was kind of like, oh, I really want to go see it. But actually, within a couple weeks now, it's going to be... on Disney Plus. Yeah. And then lastly, this is a bit of sad news for me, but I think the rest of the world probably disagrees. I've been watching Cowboy Bebop, as I told you.
Right. Yeah.
Me and my wife have been watching it, and we really, I really like it. Like she really likes it. I really like it. I think it's it's really cool looking. I think it's fun, but it's apparently done. Like after one season, they've canceled.
I'm surprised how quick that was because, like, I don't know, like, yeah, I've only watched the first 2 episodes.
Oh, did you watch it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually have also watched the anime. I guess the movie, but there was a TV series as well. I believe I haven't watched. And yeah, I mean, I could see the criticism. You know, I think which is mainly centered around. You know, it's very difficult. Like, I think it's always difficult whenever you have some source material, especially if it's pretty well liked. You know, which in this case it was, to translate that to live action, like animated to live action. So I get the criticism, but at the same time, like it, you know, from at least the first 2 episodes, it seemed like people would just watch it on like, it seems like it's watchable enough, right? And again, this industry, especially streaming, like it doesn't matter if the critical reviews, right? They just care about views, right? So I'm surprised they didn't get enough views. But I guess there probably was some number they were supposed to hit and they didn't hit it, right?
I wonder if it straddled that like really like bad area of people who are willing to watch something that's kind of new and quirky.
Yeah.
And so that would be newcomers. Like, so, you know, people like me, I didn't watch the original. So that's probably a pretty small population of people who want to watch something new.
But that's very competitive, right? There's so much content now that I can see the issue being it's a very niche, you know, potentially for new viewers who are just like, you know, scrolling through Netflix, wondering what to watch next.
Yeah.
I could see that being maybe a little bit niche, right? Because I think that's a danger with, I think they kind of failed on 2 fronts. One, they tried to stick very closely to the original style and feeling, which is good. I think that's a good intention rather than trying to like completely rework it. The problem with that is like that style is actually kind of niche. Like not giving too much away. Like, you know, it's a space sci-fi thing, but it's very quirky. You know, like it has this weird jazz soundtrack,
which is so cool though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. I really like it. But you can see that being a little bit kind of like weird.
Yeah, totally.
And then I think the other issue with trying to stick with that is then you're always going to be compared to the original, and that's a very tricky thing to live up to that bar, right?
Yeah.
So I actually think that they would have maybe been more successful if they didn't try to stick too closely to the original style. They could have made it a little bit more kind of, you know, like accessible and not like face the criticism maybe as well of sticking too close. But I'm not surprised, but you know, like I haven't made my way through the whole, I don't know how many episodes there are in the first season, but I don't think it's terrible. Like I think, you know, it's at least unique and different, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. I think it was fun. Like it wasn't perfect, like, but it was it was fun. It was gorgeous. Like it looked crazy. The music was awesome. Like it just had a cool aesthetic, you know, like it felt super cool. The opening credits were super sweet, although apparently those are just basic rip off of the original, but it's very cool. So, all right. So that was a quick bit of news, but as always, we want to find out what is under Aaron's invisible hat.
Yeah.
But on top of his noggin on this wonderful Saturday morning.
Yeah, I mean, given the like 0 prep time, I think I was able to draw on, you know, stuff that, because in the absence of a podcast, like you and I have just been kind of like, you know, discussing and sharing.
That's the problem, right? That's the problem.
Cool news, right? But that's fine. So like one thing I think just last week or the week before, like you and I were talking a bit about, is this new electric truck from a company called Rivian.
Yes.
And so maybe I'll like kind of like back up a bit. Like, you know, it's really interesting. There's a lot of new electric vehicles coming to market either now or in the next year or two. I feel like things have really accelerated because if you think back even like a year ago, like, you know, obviously Tesla's been making their vehicles for a while, but there wasn't much, right? There's a lot of kind of kind of stuff on the horizon, but there's a lot of stuff coming out now. You know, obviously Hyundai has a pretty huge like lineup coming up, and I think the Ioniq 5, which looks really promising, which is the first kind of really ground up kind of
super cool
vehicle, is now kind of hitting the market. But even companies like Volvo, they have 1 or 2 electric vehicles now that look really compelling, right? Like they're not, a lot of these, we're now getting into the generation where it's not just like, the company took an existing vehicle and kind of tried to make it electric, and it's kind of imperfect. These are actually kind of more ground up electric builds. But the other thing we're getting now is essentially more Teslas, right? Like these companies that ground up have not made any vehicles before. They're now coming to market with electric vehicles. So, Tesla, but, there's some pretty big names with a lot of promise coming out. I'd say more similar to kind of the Tesla, Model S side of things. There's a company called Lucid that is now coming out with these pretty crazy, they're kind of targeting like the kind of premium, but not, not kind of sporty, not kind of, whatever. They're really going to the luxury kind of what the Model S was, but kind of amping that up. Yep. But another company that is ground up electric is Rivian, which is their first product, a truck. And it's really interesting because, I think like I don't know if you've seen any of the videos they put out in the past.
Yeah, you sent me some of the original ones.
Yeah.
And then more recently, yeah.
But it's really cool because it's, I love seeing, and especially rare vehicles, right? Because, most companies have been around forever, right? Like a lot of the companies that have come out with electric vehicles have been around for a long time. So it's really cool seeing kind of, something start from zero and seeing kind of like that process. But Rivian's been really interesting because, I think, especially you and I, and Tesla has done this, but it seems like their approach is very kind of what you would expect from an Apple, right? Or almost in the software world where it's very kind of user experience focused. And, it doesn't, you watch their kind of product development videos and stuff. It feels more like they're developing a really cool consumer product rather than like another vehicle. Yeah. So the truck, which is called the R1T, that has just now started being delivered to customers, and I think been in development for years and years now. I thought it was interesting just based on their videos, but now that there's been some more in-depth reviews and stuff coming out. And again, I wouldn't consider myself a truck person. Never own a truck, never really wanted to own a truck, but I think this is such an interesting vehicle because again, I think the least interesting part of it is actually that it's a truck, which there isn't a lot out there, right? There's not a lot of electric trucks, right? Ford has now made one, but again, it's kind of just like their existing F-150 just made electric. So I've never really been a truck fan, but I think now that I'm seeing a little bit more about kind of the things that the very small details and kind of how they kind of develop it, it's super interesting because again, it seems like it's the same approach that any kind of really respected product has taken, which is really thinking about what are all the little details and how do you use it day to day.
Yeah, what's the user going to actually do with it, right? It's kind of like when Apple, like, when the iPhone was launched, right? There's a lot of these, or even, I don't know, like the iPod, but there's a lot of these use cases. Sorry, there's a lot of technology in there, but they don't present it as, we have a touchscreen, we have this, we have this. It's more like, oh, let's say, you're browsing the internet and then you get a phone call and then you want to go order some pizza, and then that, like, really picturing what the user's life is going to be around this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think everyone has probably encountered like some product like this, I think, back a few years, but like the Nest thermostat when it came out was another good example of just like, obviously you can change temperature, but, I think people really loved it because of the industrial design and how intuitive it was to use, right? Like, I mean, the same thing with when the first iPod with the scroll wheel came out, right?
Yeah.
It's not like there wasn't a music player before, but just very intuitive. So it seems like there's a lot of elements similar to that in how they kind of thought about this truck. And so I think like I sent you one video of MKBHD, who kind of went through a little bit of like, quick intro on a 20-minute video. I haven't watched it yet, but apparently, do you know who Doug DeMuro is?
Yeah, so he released his too. So this
and that's a much longer video. I think it's like a 40-minute. Like it's a pretty long kind of dive.
Doug DeMuro's videos are always so long, right?
Yeah.
I mean, great YouTuber. Like great. Like I always watch it. Like if you're excited about something, Doug DeMuro will
he'll go into a lot of detail.
Just every single detail. Yeah. No, he's good. He's good. But this is what I was going to ask you though. Because seeing that MKBHD's video wasn't too long ago, and now Doug DeMuro's video is out. Is it soon? Is it is it going to be released? Is it released now? Like,
Well, people are already getting it, right? So I think
okay.
Yeah, only in the US so far. I think Canada deliveries haven't started yet. And they're still ramping up production, so there's not a lot being made right now. But yeah, people are starting to get this in the US.
Well, how much is it?
So I think it starts around 70,000 American.
Do you have any idea how much an F-150 is? Like, I've never.
I don't know actually. Actually, you know what? I think it's around the same price because F-150 is not a cheap vehicle, and the electric version is going to be even more.
Right.
So I think it's maybe a little bit more expensive than the electric F-150. But yeah, so it's it's obviously it's definitely more of a premium offering. But the thing is, like, you kind of see what they've done with the vehicle, and it kind of makes sense. Like, there's a lot of features, there's a lot that they kind of put in these vehicles. So actually, the price doesn't seem too absurd, right?
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, like, again, I'm not wouldn't consider myself a truck fan, but I am a fan of just really great design from the perspective of like, hey, is this very usable? Is this does this make your life better and easier?
Yeah.
Right. And it seems like they put a lot of thought into this. And so, like, I mean, I can read out a few of the features, but I'm kind of curious, like, you watched the video, I'm kind of curious to see what you picked up as well. But so obviously, like, I mean, the big stats, like, it's a truck, but because it's electric, they've been able to like do things with it that you wouldn't consider a truck being able to do. I mean, I think the craziest part is they claim it'll accelerate 0 to 60 in
3, right?
In almost 3, like as little as 3 seconds, which is
it's crazy.
Basically almost as a 911 turbo. Like,
yeah.
Like, that's crazy, right? And it's faster than most sport cars out there, but this is a truck, right? And I think the thing is, until you drive electric, you don't kind of realize this, but it used to be that these figures like acceleration and speed were kind of more just like, hey, look how sporty this vehicle is.
Yeah.
But actually, once you've kind of driven electric, it's actually a really great feature just day to day because of how instant the power is. And like a lot of cars have safety features now, but I think like, I think you would probably like agree as well. Like, a big safety feature is actually the responsiveness of a vehicle, right? Because if you're in a situation,
how much in control you feel, basically, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. And so, like, I think that's why I've never been a fan of larger vehicles, because they're kind of very unresponsive, right? And I feel like it's actually more dangerous than a smaller vehicle in some ways, because if you need to avoid an incident, like, you have less control, right? But it seems like like, this is a truck, but you have all the control of a smaller, more responsive vehicle. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty crazy thing in a truck. But I mean, there's all sorts of like really cool stuff they've done. A lot of it is because it's electric and they just don't need as much space for like conventional motors and stuff like that. I mean, one really cool thing is it's behind kind of the rear seats, between the rear seats and I guess the truck bed, but they have this thing called a gear tunnel. And at the very least, like, so what it is like, and I'll, post a link to this. But it's basically, a storage space, but it opens on both sides of the truck. So you can actually, like, it basically goes right through from one side of the truck to the other, like the driver's side to the passenger side. And so at the very least, it's really cool
just
storage.
Picture basically, for listeners, just basically picture like a tunnel through your truck.
Yeah, exactly. Right in the middle of the truck, right?
Yeah.
So at the very least, it's really cool storage, because I think, like, again, it's not like I am working on construction sites or whatever, but it's kind of cool to have a storage space that's really dedicated, that's like isolated. I think it's fully like kind of, like basically weatherproof and stuff like that. So you can just throw stuff in there.
But what I like about it though, it's like a storage space that like it's not like meant as like interior, like it's like steel and like whatever. It's like an outdoor storage space.
Yeah, exactly. Completely isolated, right? But it's secure. You can lock it up, right?
Yeah.
But there's some really cool features of this. They call it a gear tunnel. Some really cool features. I mean, one being the doors that open out, right? Those are like fully kind of weight support. I think they support up to like 400 pounds or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So not only can you use it as a bench and put stuff on, but then you can also use it to climb up into the bed, right? So just really cool in that perspective. But the other thing that they've done is they've kind of made this tunnel sort of a bit of like a accessory platform. What I mean by that is like, They're intending a bunch of use cases where you can like, put cool little attachments in here. But one that they actually make, which is kind of crazy, is a full, like, they call it a camp kitchen, but it's a full setup with an induction cooktop, like an electric cooktop. It has a sink. It has, I think, like a cooler, refrigerated kind of like place. But it's basically like the use case is you go out camping, you have a full kitchen that you just pull out. It just slides out of this gear tunnel, right? Yeah. And when you're not using it, you just push it back in. And that's just such a, like, again, like I can't think of any other company really coming to this conclusion. But because it seems like they took such a user-centric design, they actually probably went out and like their design team probably went out and actually went camping. Right? And tried to figure out how can we make this, more useful. So that's, I just think that's a super cool kind of feature that I would never expect from, not just a truck, but any kind of car manufacturer, right?
Well, I think that's the thing with all these, like in a way, I think that the Cybertruck and this truck are actually more impressive feats than, say, the original Tesla Roadster, right?
Yeah.
Because I think what the Cybertruck and the Rivian do is, like you said, they make people who are not truck or camping people want to be truck or camping people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? It's like, I don't camp and I don't truck, but yeah, I want to buy this thing. I want a reason to own this thing.
That makes it sound so fun, right? I mean, kind of related to this. I mean, obviously this vehicle is very targeted towards kind of that adventure lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Going out camping and stuff. I mean, kind of related to the this camp kitchen that pulls out is again, and it's an accessory that Rivian makes, but they're intending this to just be like an example of many potential accessories that maybe other companies, third parties will make. But they have this full tent setup, and so it's pretty crazy. Like there's these rail attachments that can go on the roof or the bed that you can put all sorts of things on. But one of the things you can put on is a full basically tent, right? And so when it's not in use, it folds up really neatly, but then you can basically put it and it rests on top of the back of the bed, but it sleeps up to 3 people. And just like, it's fully waterproof and everything. Yeah. But it's like, man, that sounds like a fun time. Like, like I can camp on the truck, I can cook like that, again, even if you're not into that stuff, you're like, that's a cool sounding thing, right?
That's the thing. Like when you get a device or something where, again, like you want a reason to use it, right? Like that's where I think you get very impressive when you get the attention of people who are like I have no use for this. This is not me at all. Yeah. But I really want it. Like that's where you've really, broken down barriers and you've really done something really crazy, right? So like I think that's like really crazy with Rivian. But it's kind of weird though, because I do feel like cars, and maybe they've been this way for a while, and unfortunately electric cars, I think, on one hand, I will say that, cars like Tesla and now like the Rivian, because like when I was watching the Rivian thing, I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. And on one hand, I'm like, you know what? I bet you it's one of these things where the sum is greater than, its part. Like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, in the sense that each individual feature is like, okay, no, that Bluetooth speaker, pretty cool, but not incredible, right? Yeah. Like that gear tunnel, pretty cool, but not incredible, right? But I bet you it's one of these things where you're the whole, right? Where it's like you're living with this thing day to day. Every little thing that you have becomes incredible, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, the fact that I can pull out this Bluetooth speaker, the fact that I can accelerate to whatever, like, all these things together make your entire life incredible, right? Yeah. So on one hand, I'm like, yeah, that's really, really cool. But on the other hand, I do find like, and I watched this, you might have watched this too. I watched this really good video from The Verge that talked about how phones are becoming like fashion. And basically what they're talking about is that smartphones have hit this area now where the features that they introduce year to year are not really that groundbreaking. They're kind of like, it's become not commodity is the wrong word, but it's become very like those are not
mature. Mature would be like, it's a mature technology, right?
So, right. And the things that you're adding are not very, and I almost feel like even though electric cars are still relatively new, I think the car industry in general, it's like, there's not a crazy amount. There's nothing that you're adding that's like mind blowing, right? It's great, and every car is becoming better. Like with CarPlay integration and like autopilot and like this kitchen inside your truck, right? Like these things are really, really cool. But I do think cars are so mature that it's like when the iPhone was introduced, it was an insane thing, right? Like the smartphone being introduced at all has been an insane thing. And as cool as electric cars are and as amazing as they are, I do think they suffer from the same thing where like they're so mature now that everything that you're adding is just kind of a little bit of an incremental update to what cars are today, right? Even with electric, don't get me wrong, electric is pretty mind-blowing, but I think more from a technological and almost like not environmental, but almost like shift in the industry in the world. Like there's a shift to electric and everything that comes along with it is a big shift.
Yeah.
Right. But your day-to-day usage of the product, while again, don't get me wrong, way better than it is without it, is still ultimately an incremental update. You know, it's not something that like I almost think maybe completely self-driving cars when the whole world goes self-driving. Right, like, will be pretty incredible, but maybe not even because maybe that would be so incremental as well. Like our road to that, is going to be so incremental, and maybe necessarily so. Yeah, but yeah, so that's where I sit on.
That's why I think that like electric technology in a truck, I think if anything, is a bigger leap because again, there's plenty of fast cars out there, right? Very responsive cars, but again it's very difficult. It was very difficult to make, a truck that accelerates 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, right? So I think it's actually a bigger leap showcased in something like a truck, right? And you're right. I think a lot of the things that they're trying to do here are not about, which is what a lot of the car industry has done, which is just like the same thing, just better, right? Like it just becomes a marketing thing in terms of like, like, oh, it does this. Every car has done that, but we do this like this much more, right? There's stuff that again with whether it's that gear tunnel, things like that. Even like again one really kind of silly thing that I don't know how useful this is, but I just think it's such a cool kind of like detail they added is they have this little flashlight that just pops out of the door, right? So I think it's just in the door and you just push it and it pops out. So okay, flashlight that that's fine. Not super exciting in itself, but one thing that they did is the flashlight itself, it's rechargeable and it has a single cell from the same cell that they use in the rest of the battery pack. And if you're not familiar with what like an electric car battery pack looks like or how it's structured, it's actually just a bunch of tiny, usually anyways, it's a bunch of tiny battery cells, right? And they actually kind of look like a AA battery or something like that. But Teslas, Rivians, etc., it's just hundreds, sometimes thousands of these little cells, right? And so they put one of these little cells in this rechargeable flashlight, which I just think is so cool because again, it's one of those things where like, it's not maybe super useful on its own, but I think it just adds to the experience of like maybe owning one of these things, right? All these small details.
And that's
right?
the thing. I think that's what the ultimate benefit is the experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, to be honest, it's hard to get excited about these things until you own these things.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think what it comes down to is like, okay, if you own it, then it's just like your mind is blown because you'll be in a situation where you'll be like, oh shoot, I need a flashlight. Boom, I got it. Oh shoot, it'd be sweet if I had a Bluetooth speaker. I got it, right? But before you experience it, I think it's actually hard to get that excited about it because I think ultimately the problem with a lot of these things, and again, same thing that's happening in the phone industry, is that the stuff that they're adding is stuff that we've experienced, just not within that form factor, right?
Yeah.
So for example, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Like that exists today. Maybe not on a truck, but it exists today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? A flashlight. That exists today, but maybe not in the handle of your door, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same thing where it's like cameras on phones. Yeah, great. But you know what? We've had cameras that can do that. Okay, maybe they're not inside a phone, but we've seen that before, right? Like when a smartphone was introduced, the idea of the full internet in your pocket, right? I mean, yeah, you could argue that that's just internet in a different form, but I feel like that is different enough that it's like, well, we've never seen that before, or we've never seen it to that level before, right? And so I think that's the problem with some of these things. Like when I watch these videos, I'm like, this is pretty cool, but each feature that they're highlighting, I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. But I bet you if I owned it,
Yeah.
I would be like, oh my God, this is the craziest like
Yeah.
life experience, right? And that's where it's that experience that you get from all these little things. I think that's actually truly exciting, which is a hard thing to sell when you're just doing a review of like.
I mean,
here's
yeah,
this
I
feature,
agree.
here's this feature, here's this feature, right?
I mean, I think that's like the general kind of with a lot of technology, right? I think you're kind of touching on, in general, how consumers perceive, like value or excitement from a lot of products, especially technology products. They're actually not the things that will matter, like in day to day, right?
Yeah.
And how much utility you get out of it, right? And you're right, with phones, it's a thing, right? I think it used to be much easier to sell, even just on the form factor, right? Like, it's like, oh, this form factor is new and exciting, right? But it's gotten to the point where it's so mature that the things that actually improve significantly, they're very hard to market, right? Things like battery life and
because you know what I think it is?
Yeah.
I think the thing that actually creates improvement is the enabling or the encouragement to change your behavior. I think that's what it is. It's like if Apple or YouTube or whoever, Google, whatever, introduce a feature that now encourages you or enables you to do something that you didn't do before, and I think that's a big deal. So that's why I think, for example, putting a camera on a phone, right? Like today, I'm like, I don't want to bring a camera around. I don't want to do this. But having a camera on my phone enables me or encourages me to just take photos wherever I am.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the same thing I think with the Rivian, where it's like, oh, if I can listen to music wherever I am,
Yeah.
like that's a pretty big thing. So selling the change in behavior, I think, is a hard thing to sell, because I think that's really what the big significance is nowadays, right?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of see it as like, the one thing that is still true is when the physical design of a phone changes, that's definitely like a much more popular sales cycle, right?
Right.
And again, but if you think about it, that does very little for your usability or whatnot, right?
Yeah,
But again, that just speaks to the consumer mindset of people make these decisions not on, let's say you own a phone for like 2, 3, 4 years, right?
Yeah.
For better or worse, people aren't making the decision of, okay, how good of a device will this be over that 3, 4 years?
Yeah.
They're making a decision based off, this looks new. The day I get it, like, it's going to look different, right?
Yep.
Than the previous phone. So I think that, and again, that's true, I think, of a lot of products, right?
Yeah.
They're not selling, you see a lot of marketing that they're not really selling it on like, hey, like what's the boring usability of this for like 3 years? They sell it on like this looks different, great, or it's brand new, right? But I think a lot of people, when they own something, they realize that very quickly, right? Like you very quickly forget about the kind of new flashy thing, and then it just comes down to the daily usability, right? So I think,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it's crazy because like I can think very concretely of something that would not advertise or sell well, but actually change my behavior. Like, I think it was from the iPhone. It was either from the 6 to the 10 that I upgraded or whatever. I can't remember what. I think it was from 6 to the 10. Either the 4S to the 6 or the 6 to the 10. But anyways, one of my upgrade cycles, Siri got probably a second or two quicker. like it was like so minimal, right?
Yeah.
But it was enough that it was faster to do something through Siri than it was to manually open up my phone and do something. So for example, set a reminder. It was like before it was like, click, remind me to do this. Takes a couple seconds. This seems so long and annoying.
Yeah.
But when Siri got quick enough, but by a second or two, it actually changed my behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what? Again, The Verge did a review about the fast charging of the watch, the 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were saying that just the fact that it fast charges changes the behavior of how to use it.
Yeah,
And like
exactly.
when you charge it and when you wear it at night and all stuff like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But those don't like quick charge.
It's because it's also like those are hard to market because that means they also have to admit that what they had previously wasn't good enough.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? It's the same things, like that's why they won't really talk too much about durability, because that means they're admitting that their old phones weren't durable enough, right?
Yeah. That's a good
but
point.
it's kind of funny. It's like it's one of those consumer things where like, how many generations of iPhone have there been now? Most people still are purchasing, like, let's say a case with the same assumptions of like, the phone from 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? But meanwhile, they've made like the glass and everything like every year incrementally more durable, right? Very hard to market. To say it's 20% more crack resistant. Like it's really hard to kind of market that, right? They tried. I know you saw the one commercial where like this lady's walking down the street and she like, it's a really dramatic, she drops the phone.
Right.
Like there's that, you know, but I think again, and it's fine because, you know, I think people are generally drawn to, hey, what is a big flashy thing here, right?
Yeah, it's true.
That's what gets you excited about making a big purchase. But I think at the end of the day, when you actually own these things, right, then you actually realize it's actually not about that. It's like, again, the truck is like, to me, because again, I've got, like, if you actually think through the daily usability, the storage is one of the more exciting parts, which is again a really boring thing to like. How do you market that? How do you market like this has a bunch of cool storage, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, storage and the fact that it's like, oh, it's your truck and it's your sports car in one. So how do you market? Oh, it takes up one less spot in your garage. That's actually a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But you're not going to market it that way. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think again, I'll post a video to MKBHD's kind of little run through, but I think it's actually one of the more exciting, not just electric vehicles. Actually, I think one of the more exciting vehicles come out in a while, just because it's such a refreshing take on, you know, just how you design from a usability standpoint a vehicle. So yeah, check it out. But that's that's what was on my mind, I guess.
All right. We are coming to a close here on episode 67 of the ETC podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, be sure to email us at podcast.etc@gmail.com or tweet at us at the ETC podcast. You can also visit our official website, anchor.fm/the-etc-podcast, where you can see all our episodes and you can even leave a voice message. The ETC podcast is currently hosted on anchor.fm, but distributed to all your favorite podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, and more. But I hate how good I am at like starting that closing, and then I don't know how to end it. So that is it for this wonderful December 11th, 2021 special holiday episode. Super full, jam-packed of holiday stuff. We don't know what this means for the ETC podcast. We may be, you know, coming back in January. We don't know. Like, that's just how it rolls. But keep your eyes peeled. Subscribe to us. Do whatever you can to spread the word. But as for now, my name is Casey Lee, and sitting across the city from me, as always, is
Aaron Zdenkar.
We'll see you guys in the new year.
Happy holidays, I guess.